Now, obviously, this video is going to be about a Chinese diesel heater. However, this is not going to be a standard video about a Chinese diesel heater where I unbox it, set it up, and show you how it works. I bought this all-in-one unit because I wanted it to be portable. They claim they're portable, but you've got to have a hole for the exhaust, you got to have a hole for the intake, and I need it to just carry it into an outbuilding. Now I have 4 1860 vintage outbuildings, timber frame, and they're in various states of repair. So if I want to do anything in those buildings in the wintertime, I need a little bit of heat. So I've got this 5 kilowatt heater, and I'm going to modify it to make it truly portable so that I can carry it in, set it on a tray, stick the exhaust out the little box that I'm going to show you how I built, plug it in and turn it on. The air intake for the burner is going to be from inside the building. Why? Because these old buildings leak like sieves and there's plenty of fresh air. So this is how I'm going to make one of these Chinese diesel heaters portable for outbuildings. So the first thing I looked at was, how am I going to power it? I watched probably 3 dozen videos, and it looked like the majority of the people are using a 12-volt battery and a battery charger. Well, that's not exactly portable. So I bought a 20 amp AC to DC converter. Why 20? Because it takes about 13 amps to get started with the igniter, and a 15 amp, it's too close to the limit. You don't run electronics at near maximum. So with a 20 amp output, I'm nowhere near the limit with 13, and that is what I'm going to use. So to hook it up, you've got, as you can see, a string of connections. On this particular unit, left hand side was AC in, and you can see I've got the little orange protector flipped up, and the AC is now connected. Now the DC lines, they give you just a little bit stripped. Well, that's not enough to go under those connectors. So you get out your strippers and you make it just a little bit longer, and then you attach positive to positive and negative to negative. Next, to attach the power supply to the cabinet so that I can carry everything as one unit, I put down some Velcro. As you can see, got the fuzzy on the AC adapter, and then I put the whatever the other side is, the mating side, onto it, and then I stuck it to the side of the all-in-one heater. So now it goes where the heater goes. The heater's power wires, it's way too long, but it's fine. Just I braided it together so it isn't flopping all over, and then zip tied it to the heater. And on the back side of the heater, I just put red to positive and black to negative. So now I've got to figure out what to do with the exhaust. I want the exhaust to not go straight down. I want it to turn and go out the hole that is in the all-in-one leg. Now if you look at the exhaust there, you'll see that there's a very long straight section. Well, if you start the bend right after the straight section, you can't get the sweep to go out the hole in the leg. So I've got it marked at the tip of the snout of the exhaust, and what I proceeded to do then was take a Dremel and cut it with a cutoff wheel, and now you can see that it is back on the exhaust port or snout, whatever, and now I can immediately start the bend. And in this next shot you can see I have got the 90-degree bend, and that is pointed towards the leg with the hole in it. It's on the back side. And here you can see another angle. I do have a problem with the fuel line laying on the exhaust, but we'll get to that. So I took some exhaust wrap and attached the wrap with the provided hose clamp The Chinese hose clamps aren't very good. However, you can make them work. So I attached it to the exhaust port and then carefully wrapped it tight all the way down the length of the exhaust. Used the other clamp to clamp the end of it, leaving about an inch of bare exhaust, as you can see. Then getting back to that fuel line, you see that it is laying on the heat wrap. That is not going to work. It gets too hot. So I just took a zip tie and brought it up in this angle, because we're looking from the bottom up at it. It looks like it is up in the air, but it's not. I just moved it off to the side around the air intake port to get it away from the heat. And then I installed the air intake. I cut the tube, put it on the port, stuck the air filter, diffuser, whatever you want to call it, that little black barrel on the end, clamped it with the hose clamps, and then zip tied it to the frame on the front side of the heater. Then I took 1-inch pieces of wood and screwed them to the legs to get a little more clearance. And here's a shot under the unit. You can see that I've got the clearance that I need so that I can set the thing on the ground, on the floor, wherever, and then when I bring it into a building and put it on my mounting tray, which you'll see me build shortly, I don't have the exhaust sticking down, getting in the way. And then after the exhaust exits the rear leg, I put a 90-degree sweep so that it will, at that point, go out of the building. So then I took some 3/4 plywood and some more of the 1-inch boards that I've got and made a little tray, and then put some pocket screws in so that I can attach it to the building. And eventually I will have one of those trays in all 4 of my outbuildings so that I can simply take the heater, carry it in, and set it on the tray as you see here. And then all I have to do is poke the exhaust out the exhaust box that I'm going to show you how to build, plug it in and turn it on, and I've got heat. So the next step is to mount the tray in one of the outbuildings. So I picked our best outbuilding that we've got some 1/2-inch Celotex rigid polyiso insulation that we're using as kind of like a saw building. We got a table saw, got a radial arm, and we use that for our various projects. But in the winter, it's cold out there. So we just set the tray on one of the timbers and ran the 4 pocket screws in. Then we needed an exhaust box. So I've got a 4-inch deep square electrical box. And what you need to do is remove the screws from the ears. And then I just took lineman's pliers and bent them 180 degrees so that they stick out. And those are going to be my mounting tabs. And there we are with all 4 tabs. One of them did not survive, it broke, but 3 is good enough. Then what you have to do is, these boxes had 1/2 and 3/4 inch holes. I need 1 1/8 inch. So I took 1 1/8 inch hole saw, and you can see I've got it started in the center of the box there. And you just carefully drill the hole. Now, if the bung pops out, what you do is you take the box, screw it to a 2x4, put that back in the vise, and continue drilling, and the 2x4 will center your pilot drill, and you can get the hole drilled. And in this image, you can see we've got the hole drilled, and we just cleaned up the edges a little bit with a file. And the little bit of exhaust that we cut off in the previous shot, where we needed to get that bend for the exhaust, I just set that in the hole, and it fits with plenty of clearance. So that's good. And there is how it's going to look on the exhaust. Here's another angle showing the whole setup. So now it's time to prime the pump after you put fuel in. And this is the new style controller, and the manual does not reflect how to do it. So the up and down arrow, you hit that at the same time and it will go through a priming cycle. I had to go through 2.5 cycles to get fuel to the engine. So it depends on which controller you have. The difference between the old controller and the new controller is the new controller has smaller print than the old one. There is a video on YouTube. There's somebody explaining the difference between the old and the new. It looks like they're cheapening up the controllers, but for a portable unit for the outbuildings, I don't care. It doesn't matter. So now what I did was I set the heater on the tray where the exhaust went in the box. I marked that with a magic marker, and then I took my Dremel oscillating saw and the vibration gloves. And if you use those a lot, you do need vibration gloves. You can get those on Amazon. And I got the hole cut. If you're going to consider using an oscillating saw, you really should look at the Diablo oscillating blades. They are far tougher than your average blade. As you can see here in the inset, it cut lengthwise through 2 hand-cut nails. And there's what it looks like on the outside. Got a little breakout that I had to cut that piece and put a little glue and stick it back on, but it is an old outbuilding. It doesn't really matter. So there is our box with 3 of the 4 tabs using a 1-inch drywall screw. The screws just fit through the tab holes. And on the outside, that's what it looks like. And eventually I went back and caulked around it and put the little piece back in. And there's it's caulked, but the little piece still isn't in. So now, from the inside, you set the heater in the tray, poke the exhaust out the exhaust box, and you're pretty much ready to go. And on the other side, I'm not going to use their black hose for the air duct. I bought a 3-inch galvanized 90-degree elbow from Home Depot. I bought just a thin one. They've got a thin one and a thick one, but thin one works just fine. And just slide it on, and that allows me to adjust the air. And looking into the building from outside, this is what it looks like. And this is what it sounds like running. I'm not concerned about the tick, 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 because it's an outbuilding. I'm only going to be in there doing what I need to do. Although I may have to warm the building up for half an hour or an hour, depending on how cold it is outside. And when you go outside, you can see I don't have a muffler on it because I'm out in the middle of nowhere and I'm not concerned about that noise. Plus, it doesn't make it portable if I have to stick that on, so I'm not going to bother with that either. So now I'm going to do some temperature checks. So the air coming out of the metal 90-degree duct is 211 degrees. Then the exhaust coming out of the backside leg of the heater is 336. That's on the high temperature wrap. Then at the box, it's 285. Shot directly below the exhaust on the box is 64.5. Then directly above the exhaust on the box is 87. The whole thing is being cooled by the cold air outside because the box sticks outside. Then when we go outside, above the exhaust on the box, it's 78. And below the exhaust on the box is ambient temperature of 20, and the air coming out of the exhaust at that point is down to 150 degrees. So after we ran it for a while, we determined that there was heat radiating off that metal elbow, and it was affecting the ambient temperature shown on the little controller. So what I did was I unplugged the controller, pulled it off its mount, ran the controller wire from the left side of the unit to the right side, because that's where the main coupling is, and brought it around, which gave me a lot more cable. And then using some more of that Velcro, I Velcroed it to the side of the heater that it sticks out into the room. Kind of a quick field expedient fix. And then it started reading correctly because it's away from the heat. And pulling back, this is what you would see when it's running. Now, this next segment is how easy it is to hook the unit up when you walk into the building. And that is how I took a Chinese diesel heater and made it truly portable so that you can carry it into any building and set it up in under a minute to have it start producing heat.